a poor teenager saved the life of a successful businessman's wife. But when asked what he wanted in return, his answer left everyone surprised. Ethan moves quietly through his daily life, his young shoulders carrying responsibilities far beyond his years. His deep brown eyes, often lost in thought, hold both wisdom and weariness, a testament to the challenges he faces. Despite his circumstances, he carries himself with quiet determination, finding strength in caring for his family and dreaming of better days ahead. The absence of his mother, lost to a tragic car accident 4 years ago, remains a constant ache in their lives. Her photograph sits prominently on a shelf in their living room, capturing her gentle smile and kind eyes. In quiet moments, Ethan often finds himself standing before it, fingers tracing the frame as memories wash over him. The warmth of her hugs, the sound of her laughter, the way she'd smooth his hair back when he was worried. These memories, though bittersweet, give him strength to carry on. His father works grueling hours as a construction worker, leaving their apartment before sunrise and returning long after dark. The toll of endless overtime shows in his weathered face and slumped shoulders. Too exhausted to manage household chores or cooking, he still manages to muster a tired smile for his children each night. The sight of his father's calloused hands and weary eyes fuels Ethan's determination to somehow make things better. Their apartment, a small unit in an aging building, tells the story of their struggle through its peeling walls and water-stained ceiling. Yet within these worn walls, they've carved out a home. The cramped living room doubles as Ethan's bedroom, while his father and sister share the single bedroom. Despite its shortcomings, every corner holds memories of their family's resilience. From the worn couch where they gather for simple meals to the small kitchen where Ethan has learned to cook. The neighborhood around them reflects similar hardship, with boarded-up storefronts and abandoned houses lining the streets. But beyond these immediate surroundings, the gleaming towers of downtown Chicago rise against the sky, their lights twinkling from their narrow balcony. Ethan often stands in the evening air, watching those lights and dreaming. The contrast between his current reality and those shining buildings doesn't discourage him. Instead, it feeds his hope that one day, through hard work and determination, he'll find a way to give his family the life they deserve. Every night, Ethan lies awake in their small Chicago apartment, staring at the eviction notice that threatens their only home. 2 weeks left to pay $2,000, the numbers dance in his mind as he listens to the quiet breathing of his family. The kitchen table holds a growing pile of bills. Electricity, water, building fees. Each red stamp marking overdue makes his heart sink a little more. At just 12 years old, Ethan knows these numbers by heart, though he wishes during school while other kids chat about video games and weekend plans. Ethan's mind drifts to those unpaid bills. He tries to focus on his teacher's words, but the worry about losing their home keeps creeping back. Still, something his mother used to say helps him stay hopeful. "Stay strong, Ethan," she'd tell him, and he can still hear her voice clearly in his memories. Looking at her photo each morning, Ethan draws strength from her smile. Even when the bills seem impossible to pay, even when he overhears his father on the phone begging for more time, Ethan refuses to give up hope. He watches his father leave for work before sunrise, coming home with paint-stained clothes and tired eyes, and knows they'll find a way. Together, they'll keep their small corner of Chicago their home. His mother taught him that strength isn't about never feeling scared. It's about keeping going, even when you are. So Ethan carries on, holding on to hope while helping care for his sister and supporting his dad, believing that better days lie ahead. The scorching afternoon sun beat down on Chicago's busy streets as Ethan made his way to the library, his backpack heavy with books. Pausing at the train station for a drink from the public water fountain, he noticed something that made him freeze mid-sip. A pregnant woman standing precariously close to the platform edge. She was elegantly dressed in business attire, but her pristine appearance was marred by obvious distress. Her face had taken on an alarming pallor, the color draining away until her skin appeared almost gray. One hand clutched protectively at her swollen belly, while the other gripped a nearby railing with white-knuckled intensity. Even from a distance, Ethan could see the rapid rise and fall of her chest as she struggled to breathe. The afternoon crowd flowed around her like a river around a stone, everyone too absorbed in their own worlds to notice her deteriorating condition. Business people hurried past with eyes glued to phones, tourists consulted maps, and commuters stood impatiently waiting for the next train. A man in a suit actually brushed against her shoulder as he rushed by, not even glancing at her obvious distress. Beads of sweat rolled down the woman's face, despite the station's shade. Her eyes were squeezed shut in what appeared to be pain, and her breathing had become increasingly labored. As Ethan watched, she swayed slightly, her grip on the railing tight. The rumble of an approaching train vibrated through the platform, and Ethan's heart jumped into his throat as he saw her stumble slightly, still dangerously close to the platform's edge. The scene before him seemed to slow down, every detail crystal clear. Her expensive shoes wobbling precariously, the way her free hand moved instinctively to protect her unborn child, the concerning shade of gray that had crept into her. What truly struck Ethan was the flash of fear in her eyes when they briefly opened, the look of someone trying to remain composed while fighting rising panic. People continued to stream past, some now casting curious glances, but none stopping to help. A teenage girl paused briefly, looking uncertain before her phone chimed, and she hurried away. An elderly man frowned in concern but kept. The woman's breathing had become more ragged, each breath seeming to require more effort than the last. The approaching train grew louder, its vibrations intensifying. Ethan saw the woman's knees buckle slightly, her body swaying dangerously close to the platform's edge. Time seemed to crystallize into a single moment of clarity. He could either remain a bystander like everyone else or take action. Esther's mother's voice echoed in his memory. "Stay strong, Ethan." Without further hesitation, he dropped his backpack and moved forward. The crowds, the heat, the rumbling train. Everything faded into background noise as Ethan focused solely on reaching the woman before her strength gave out completely. He could see the moment when her grip on the railing began to loosen, her body starting to tilt forward just as the train's horn blasted through the station. His heart pounding in his chest, Ethan quickened his pace, knowing that every second counted. In those crucial moments, he wasn't thinking about his family's financial troubles or the stack of bills waiting at home. His entire world narrowed to this single purpose, helping someone in desperate need, just as he wished others would help his family in their times of struggle. The woman's face, contorted in pain and fear, reminded him of the basic human connection that transcended all barriers of wealth and status. As the train's headlights became visible in the tunnel, Ethan's young legs carried him forward with surprising speed, his determination growing with each step. The woman's situation had become critical. Her face now ashen, her breathing dangerously shallow, and her grip on consciousness clearly slipping. The distance between them seemed both impossibly long and heartbreakingly short as Ethan raced against time to prevent a tragedy. Without hesitation, Ethan rushed forward, reaching the pregnant woman just as her knees began to buckle. "Ma, I've got you," he called out, his young voice steady despite his racing heart. His arms instinctively moved to support her, one hand gently gripping her elbow while the other braced against her back, helping her maintain balance as she swayed dangerously. Thank you," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. Up close, her condition appeared even more serious. Her skin was clammy, her breathing shallow and irregular. The hand pressed against her swollen belly trembled visibly. "Let's get you away from the edge," Ethan said firmly, carefully guiding her back from the platform's precipice. Each step seemed to require enormous effort from the woman, and Ethan could feel her whole body shaking. The approaching train's vibrations rattled through the platform, making their careful retreat even more precarious. As they moved to a safer position, Ethan's mind raced through his options. The woman clearly needed medical attention, but he couldn't leave her alone. He glanced around frantically, searching for help. The crowd had finally started to notice, some people stopping to stare, others hurriedly walking past with averted eyes. "I need help," Ethan called out, his voice cracking slightly with urgency. "Someone please call an ambulance." A few phones emerged from the crowd, but nobody stepped forward. The woman's grip on his arm tightened suddenly as another wave of pain seemed to wash over her. Through the growing commotion, Ethan spotted a ticket inspector approaching rapidly, his face stern and suspicious. "Hey, what's going on here?" the inspector demanded, his hand hovering near his radio. The authority in his voice made Ethan's heart skip a beat, but he stood his ground. "She needs help," Ethan explained quickly, his words tumbling out. "She's pregnant and something's wrong. We need an ambulance right away." The inspector's expression shifted from suspicion to concern as he took in the woman's condition. "Stay with her," the inspector commanded, already reaching for his radio. "Control, we need emergency medical services at platform 3 immediately." "Pregnant woman in distress." The crackling response from the radio promised help was on the way. Ethan focused on the woman, trying to remember what he'd learned about first aid in school. Try to take slow, deep breaths," he encouraged, his voice gentle despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay." The minutes seemed to stretch endlessly as they waited for the ambulance. Ethan kept talking softly to the woman, his young voice steady and reassuring despite his own fears. He told her about the books in his backpack, about his little sister's latest drawing, anything to keep her focused and conscious. More station staff had arrived, creating a protective circle around them. The crowd of onlookers grew, their murmurs creating a background hum of concern and curiosity. Ethan ignored them all, concentrating solely on the woman, who now gripped his hand with surprising strength. Finally, the distinctive wail of approaching sirens cut through the station's ambient noise. The paramedics arrived quickly, their professional efficiency a stark contrast to the earlier chaos. As they took over, Ethan tried to step back, but the woman held onto his hand for a moment longer. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes meeting his briefly before the paramedics began their assessment. Ethan watched as they carefully transferred her to a stretcher, their quick, precise movements speaking of years of experience. As they wheeled her away, Ethan felt the adrenaline starting to fade, leaving him slightly shaky. The ticket inspector returned, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did good, kid," he said gruffly. "Real good." Not many adults would have stepped up like that. Standing on the now quiet platform, Ethan realized his heart was still racing. He thought about his own mother, about how someone had hopefully been there for her in her final moments. Tears pricked at his eyes, but he blinked them away quickly. The afternoon sun still blazed overhead, but something had shifted in Ethan's world, a reminder that even in the hardest times, humans could still reach out and help one another. The inspector was still talking, asking for his name and details for the incident report, but Ethan's mind had already drifted to the woman. He hoped she would be okay, hoped the baby would be safe. In those intense moments of crisis, he'd forgotten about all his own problems, the bills, the eviction notice, the constant worry. For a brief time, he'd just been someone helping another person in need, and somehow that felt more important than anything else. As Ethan stood on the platform, the well-dressed man ran past him towards the ambulance, stopping only briefly. "You saved my wife. I'm Richard Thompson. Your name and address." Quickly the words tumbled out urgently as he scribbled Ethan's information in his phone. With a hasty "I'll find you tomorrow," he rushed to join his wife in the ambulance. The next afternoon, Mr. Thompson found himself climbing the worn stairs of Ethan's apartment building. Each step revealed more signs of poverty: peeling paint, flickering lights, the musty smell of aging infrastructure. He knocked on the Harper's door, his mind already calculating what sum might appropriately reward the boy who saved his wife and unborn child. Ethan opened the door, looking smaller in the dim hallway light. Behind him, Mr. Thompson glimpsed their sparse apartment, the couch that clearly doubled as a bed, the patched walls, the carefully mended curtains. Everything spoke of struggle, but also of dignity maintained through careful effort. "Thank you for coming, sir," Ethan said politely, inviting him in. Mr. Thompson sat on their only armchair, noting how Ethan perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded in his lap. "Ethan, what you did yesterday was extraordinary," Mr. Thompson began. "I want to repay you. Name anything: a new computer, college fund, whatever you wish for. Money's no object." Ethan's response came so softly Mr. Thompson almost missed it. "Could you help my dad find a better job?" The request stopped Mr. Thompson short. He'd expected requests for games, gadgets, maybe even cash, normal things a 12-year-old might want. Instead, this boy who clearly had so little asked for nothing for himself. "A job," Mr. Thompson repeated, studying Ethan's earnest face. "Yes, sir. My dad works construction, really long hours, but we still barely make rent." If he had a better job, Ethan's voice trailed off, his eyes drifting to the stack of bills visible on their kitchen counter. "That would help our whole family." Mr. Thompson felt something shift in his chest. Here was a child who could have asked for anything, who lived in obvious need, yet thought only of helping his father. The selflessness of it struck him deeply. "Your father must be very special," Mr. Thompson said softly, "to have raised such a thoughtful son." Ethan's face brightened with clear love and pride. "He is, sir. He tries so hard. I just want to make things easier for him." Lights, the musty smell of aging infrastructure. He knocked on the Harper's door, his mind already calculating what sum might appropriately reward the boy who saved his wife and unborn child. Ethan opened the door, looking smaller in the dim hallway light. Behind him, Mr. Thompson glimpsed their sparse apartment, the couch that clearly doubled as a bed, the patched walls, the carefully mended curtains. Everything spoke of struggle, but also of dignity maintained through careful effort. "Thank you for coming," Sir Ethan said politely, inviting him in. Mr. Thompson sat on their only armchair, noting how Ethan perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded in his lap. "Ethan, what you did yesterday was extraordinary," Mr. Thompson began. "I want to repay you. Name anything: a new computer, college fund, whatever you wish for. Money's no object." Ethan's response came so softly Mr. Thompson almost missed it. "Could you help my dad find a better job?" The request stopped Mr. Thompson short. He'd expected requests for games, gadgets, maybe even cash, normal things a 12-year-old might want. Instead, this boy who clearly had so little asked for nothing for himself. "A job," Mr. Thompson repeated, studying Ethan's earnest face. "Yes, sir. My dad works construction, really long hours, but we still barely make rent." If he had a better job, Ethan's voice trailed off, his eyes drifting to the stack of bills visible on their kitchen counter. "That would help our whole family." Mr. Thompson felt something shift in his chest. Here was a child who could have asked for anything, who lived in obvious need, yet thought only of helping his father. The selflessness of it struck him deeply. "Your father must be very special," Mr. Thompson said softly, "to have raised such a thoughtful son." Ethan's face brightened with clear love and pride. "He is, sir. He tries so hard. I just want to make things easier for him." Father's expression that something extraordinary was happening. "The official offer letter will arrive tomorrow," his father said after hanging up, voice shaky with emotion. He said, "It's more than double what I'm making now. Regular hours, benefits." He looked at Ethan, tears welling in his eyes. "Is this real, son? Did this really happen because you helped someone?" The next morning, when the offer letter arrived by courier, his father's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Reading through the details, he had to sit down, overwhelmed by what he saw. "Starting Monday," he whispered. "They want me to start Monday." The transformation began immediately. Gone were the paint-stained work clothes, replaced by clean khakis and a crisp button-down shirt provided by the company. His father stood straighter, looked younger somehow, as if years of exhaustion were falling away. Each evening that week, instead of returning exhausted at midnight, he came home at 6 p.m. The first night, he stopped at the grocery store and bought ingredients to cook dinner, something he hadn't done since their mother died. The smell of spaghetti sauce filled their small apartment, and Emma danced around the kitchen in excitement. "Daddy's cooking," she squealed, as if it were Christmas morning. That Friday, he brought home their first pizza in years. "Just a small celebration," he said, setting it on their kitchen table. "For new beginnings." They sat together, eating and talking about their days. Normal family moments that had been impossible during the endless overtime shifts. Ethan watched his father laugh at Emma's stories about school, saw the dark circles under his eyes beginning to fade. Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, his father found Ethan by the window. "You know, son," he said quietly, what you did. Asking for this instead of something for yourself, I couldn't be prouder. That night, their small apartment felt different, filled with hope and the promise of better days ahead. All because a 12-year-old boy had thought of his family before himself. Replacing the usual simple meals of pasta and canned soup they'd grown accustomed to, Emma's eyes widened at the sight. Real deli sandwiches. Like in the movies, she bounced excitedly as their father carefully unwrapped each item. Under the warm kitchen light, they gathered around the table. The moment felt sacred somehow, their first real family meal since the dark days began. Emma could barely contain her excitement as she took her first bite, declaring it the best sandwich. You know, their father said softly, looking at Ethan, "This is because of you, son. Not just the food, everything." His voice grew thick with emotion. "Your mother would be so proud of who you've become." Ethan couldn't speak, his throat tight with feeling. He focused on his sandwich, trying to hide the tears that threatened to spill. Emma, noticing the emotion, reached over and squeezed his hand. The food tasted better than anything Ethan could remember, not just because it was from the fancy deli, but because of what it represented. No more counting pennies for groceries. No more pretending he wasn't hungry so Emma could have seconds. As they shared the apple pie, they talked about their day, simple, precious family conversations that had been impossible during the endless overtime shifts. His father spoke animatedly about his new job. Emma shared stories from school, and Ethan felt the change in their family's dynamic. The lifting of a weight they'd carried for so long. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of their small kitchen and the love of his family, Ethan felt a happiness so complete it almost hurt. This was what he'd hoped for, not just better food or financial security, but these moments of pure family connection they'd lost along the way. Usually reserved demeanor. "Science and engineering, sir," he replied without hesitation. "I love understanding how things work. Machines, computers, everything really." Mr. Thompson watched as Ethan's whole demeanor transformed while explaining his fascination with technology. The boy retrieved a notebook from his backpack, showing detailed sketches of machines and inventions he'd dreamed up. Some were practical solutions to everyday problems, others more ambitious, all showing remarkable creativity for a 12-year-old. "See, I designed this system to help fix the leaky pipes in our building," Ethan explained, pointing to a carefully drawn diagram. "And this one could make the trains run more efficiently." Mr. Thompson exchanged a meaningful glance with Ethan's father, who watched his son with pride and a touch of sadness, knowing their circumstances limited Ethan's opportunities to pursue these interests. "You know," Mr. Thompson said thoughtfully, "there's a technical high school in Chicago, Bradford Tech. They have state-of-the-art laboratories, robotics programs, everything a young engineer might dream of." He paused, watching Ethan's expression carefully. "Would you be interested in studying there?" Ethan's eyes widened, but then reality seemed to hit him. "Sir, we could never afford," he began. "That's not what I asked," Mr. Thompson interrupted gently. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is a full scholarship offer, Ethan. Tuition, books, uniforms, everything. All you need to do is continue being the brilliant, hardworking young man you are." The room fell silent. Ethan's hands trembled as he took the envelope, looking to his father for guidance. His father, eyes glistening, nodded encouragingly. "This is my investment in your future," Mr. Thompson continued, his voice warm but serious. "You showed exceptional character when you helped my wife. Now you're showing exceptional talent. Both deserve to be nurtured." Emma, who had been quietly listening, suddenly burst out. "Does this mean Ethan's going to be an inventor?" The adults laughed, breaking the emotional tension. Ethan carefully opened the envelope, reading the official letterhead of Bradford Technical High School. The words blurred slightly as tears welled in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you, sir," he whispered. "Study hard. Make the most of this opportunity. That's all the thanks I need," Mr. Thompson replied. "Your father told me you've been using the public library to learn about engineering. Imagine what you could do with proper resources and guidance." That night, long after Mr. Thompson left, the Harper family sat together, talking about this new future suddenly opening before them. Ethan held the scholarship letter, still hardly believing it was real. First, his father's job. Now their lives were transforming in ways they'd never imagined possible. Mom would be so proud, Emma said softly, and Ethan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Their father pulled them both close, his own eyes wet with tears of joy. In their small kitchen, under the warm light that had witnessed so many difficult moments, they now shared something new. Not just hope, but the certainty of a brighter future, built on the foundation of a boy's compassion and dreams. Confidence. Their designer clothes and expensive accessories marking them as children of Chicago's elite. Ethan felt painfully aware of his second-hand uniform and scuffed shoes purchased from the school's donation program. He kept his head down as he navigated the crowded hallways, following his schedule to his first class. In advanced physics, Ethan chose a seat near the back, hoping to blend in, but his presence didn't go unnoticed. A group of boys nearby smirked at his worn shoes, whispering loud enough for him to hear. "Check out the charity case," one boy muttered. "Those shoes look like they came from a dumpster." Ethan's cheeks burned, but he kept his eyes forward, remembering his father's words that morning. "You earned your place here, son. Don't let anyone tell you different." The teacher began discussing quantum mechanics, and Ethan's embarrassment faded as he lost himself in the fascinating concepts. His hand rose repeatedly to answer questions, each correct response earning surprised looks from his classmates. During lunch, Ethan found a quiet corner in the library rather than brave the cafeteria. He pulled out his physics textbook, immersing himself in the advanced material. The equations and theories felt like old friends, welcoming him despite his outsider status. "Hey, you're the new scholarship kid, right?" A voice interrupted. Ethan looked up to see a girl from his physics class. "That was impressive today. I'm Sarah." Before Ethan could respond, another student joined them. "Yeah, how did you know all that quantum stuff?" he asked, genuinely curious. "I'm Marcus, by the way." Ethan hesitated, then explained about his hours studying at the public library, teaching himself from whatever books he could find. Sarah and Marcus exchanged impressed looks. "That's actually pretty cool," Marcus admitted. "We've got this study group for physics. Want to join?" The invitation marked a turning point. Though some students still looked down on him, Ethan found his tribe among the genuine science enthusiasts. In the labs, social status mattered less than understanding and ability. At home each evening, Ethan shared his experiences with his family. His father listened proudly as he described the advanced projects he was tackling, while Emma demanded demonstrations of the cool science stuff he was learning. The worn shoes became less noticeable as Ethan's brilliance became more apparent. His dedication and natural talent earned respect from teachers and students alike. He wasn't just the scholarship kid anymore. He was the one you wanted as your lab partner, the one who could explain complex concepts in ways that made sense. In those challenging first weeks, Ethan held on to his dream like a lifeline. Every snide comment about his background only strengthened his determination to prove he belonged. He wasn't just studying for himself anymore. He was studying for his family, for Thompson, who believed in him, and for every kid who thought their circumstances defined their future. Heating system in his apartment building, another would add. But alongside the admiration came the cruel comments, sharp as needles. During morning break, Ethan stood at his locker, organizing his books for the next class. A group of students passed by, their designer uniforms pristine, their voices deliberately loud. "Must be nice getting everything handed to you because of a sob story," one remarked. "Wonder if he'll start charging for his charity work," another laughed. Ethan's hand stilled on his books, but he kept his face neutral, remembering his father's words about dignity. He'd learned to let such comments wash over him, focusing instead on the day's physics equations or engineering problems. But then came the moment that cracked his carefully maintained composure. During lunch break, as Ethan sat reviewing his notes, James Wellington, whose father was a prominent tech CEO, approached his table. "You think you actually belong here?" James's voice carried across the quiet study area. "This isn't some public library where you can pretend to be something you're not. These facilities, this education, They're for people who deserve them. The words hit Ethan like physical blows. He looked around the study area. At the state-of-the-art computers, the advanced laboratory equipment visible through the glass walls, the expensive textbooks spread across tables. For the first time, he felt the full weight of the gap between his world and theirs. That afternoon, sitting in advanced engineering class, Ethan found himself second-guessing every answer, every calculation. When the teacher called on him to explain a complex circuit diagram, his usual confidence wavered. The familiar equation suddenly seemed foreign, threatening to expose him as an imposter. Walking home that evening, Ethan took a longer route, needing time to think. The gleaming towers of downtown Chicago loomed ahead, so different from his neighborhood's worn buildings. The contrast felt like a metaphor for his current situation, straddling two worlds, not fully belonging to either. His father's new job at Thompson Transportation had improved their lives immensely, but they were still far from the wealth his classmates took for granted. His uniform might be clean and properly fitted now, but his shoes were still from last year, his calculator a basic model compared to their advanced devices. For the first time since receiving the scholarship, Ethan questioned whether he truly belonged at Bradford Tech. The academic challenges he could handle. It was this constant awareness of class differences, of not fitting in, that weighed on him. Every glance at his worn shoes, every whispered comment about his background, every pause before he spoke in class reminded him that he was different. Or that night, lying in bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling, James's words echoing in his mind. "You think you actually belong here?" The question haunted him, mixing with his own doubts. Did he deserve this opportunity? Was he just fooling himself, thinking he could bridge the gap between his world and theirs? When I look at you, I see someone who earned every bit of this opportunity. You're not just our son, Ethan. You're our family's pride. The words warmed something deep inside Ethan. His father continued, "Every morning at Thompson Transportation, I hear people talking about how their bright young engineer-to-be is doing at Bradford Tech. Your story inspires people, son." Mr. Thompson, too, became a steady source of encouragement. He would call regularly, often just to check in. "How are the classes going, Ethan?" he'd ask, his voice warm with genuine interest. When Ethan shared his uncertainties about fitting in, Thompson's response was always firm and reassuring. "Listen carefully, Ethan," he said during one such call. "That spot at Bradford Tech, you earned it with your mind and your character. No one can take that away from you unless you let them. Your circumstances don't define your potential, your determination does." These conversations became anchors for Ethan, helping him stay grounded when the pressure felt overwhelming. At home, Emma would eagerly ask about his latest experiments, her innocent enthusiasm reminding him why he loved science in the first place. "My big brother's going to invent something amazing," she'd declare proudly to anyone who would listen. Her unwavering belief in him, combined with his father's quiet pride and Mr. Thompson's steady support, formed a foundation of strength that helped Ethan face each new challenge. Each morning, as he put on his uniform and prepared for another day at Bradford Tech, Ethan would remember these voices of encouragement. They reminded him that he wasn't just carrying his own dreams, but the hopes and pride of those who believed in him. Their faith became his armor against doubt, their words a shield against uncertainty. Someone who understands both hardware and software, and someone who isn't afraid to think differently, Tom added, noting Ethan's innovative approach to solving their robot's balance issues. The three quickly formed a team, spending their afternoons in the school's advanced engineering lab. Their project was ambitious, an autonomous robot designed to navigate complex environments and perform precise tasks. Ethan's experience fixing things in his old apartment building proved invaluable as they worked through mechanical challenges. Many nights, Ethan stayed late at school, calling his father to update him on their progress. "We're so close to getting the navigation system perfect, Dad," he'd explain excitedly. His father always listened with pride, understanding that this was more than just a school project. It was Ethan's chance to prove himself. The weeks before the competition blurred into a rhythm of coding, testing, and refinement. Tom handled the complex programming while Lucy perfected the mechanical systems. Ethan became the bridge between the two, his intuitive understanding of both aspects helping unite their efforts into something extraordinary. Their robot stood out from the beginning. While other teams focused on flashy features, Ethan's group prioritized reliability and innovation. Their design incorporated several unique elements, including a self-correcting balance system inspired by Ethan's observations of construction cranes at his father's old workplace. The day of the competition arrived with nervous energy. The school gymnasium was transformed into a testing ground, filled with proud parents and eager students. Ethan spotted his father and Emma in the crowd, and even Miss Thompson had come to show his support. As their robot performed flawlessly through each challenge, navigating obstacles and completing tasks with precision, Ethan could hardly believe how far he'd come from those days of studying alone in the public library. The final task, a complex sequence of movements and interactions, had the audience holding their breath. "That's my brother's robot." Emma's voice rang out as their creation executed a perfect final maneuver. The judges huddled together, marking their scorecards with intense concentration. When the announcement came, first place goes to Team Innovan, Ethan Harper, Tom Shen, and Lucy Rodriguez. The applause was thunderous, but what meant more to Ethan than the trophy was the respect in his classmates' eyes. He was no longer just the scholarship student. He was an inventor, an innovator, a peer. At the celebration afterward, Mr. Thompson approached the team. "Remarkable work," he said, examining their robot closely. "You know, Thompson Transportation could use thinking like this in our automation department. Perhaps an internship next summer?" Tom and Lucy beamed at Ethan, their shared success creating a bond stronger than any social barriers. As they posed for photos with their trophy, Ethan felt a profound sense of belonging. He'd found his place not just in the school, but in a community of innovative minds where ideas mattered more than background. That evening, celebrating at home with pizza, now a regular treat, Ethan's father held up his glass of soda in a toast. "To my son, who never stopped believing in himself." Emma added her own toast, "To the best robot-building brother ever." Ethan smiled, thinking of how far they'd come. The trophy sitting on their kitchen counter represented more than just a competition win. It was proof that dreams, backed by hard work and determination, could bridge any gap. Looking at his father's proud face and Emma's excited chatter about her brother, the inventor, Ethan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He'd done more than win a competition. He'd shown that belonging wasn't about where you came from, but where your talents and determination could take you. Solar panels on the roof to supplement battery power, and a regenerative braking system that could capture energy normally lost during frequent delivery stops. See, the problem with current delivery vehicles is their stop-start nature. Ethan explained to Mr. Thompson during one of their regular meetings. They waste so much energy braking and accelerating. My design could reduce fuel consumption by... Mr. Thompson studied the drawings with growing interest. "You've really thought this through," he noted, examining Ethan's detailed calculations. "Have you considered entering the National Youth Science Competition? The Transportation Innovation category seems perfect for..." The suggestion sparked something in Ethan. He began spending evenings in Bradford Tech's computer lab, using advanced modeling software to refine his designs. Tom and Lucy joined his efforts, contributing their expertise in programming and "We could build a working scale model," Lucy suggested, examining Ethan's latest blueprints. "The engineering lab has everything we need." With renewed purpose, Ethan expanded his research. He studied environmental impact reports, analyzed delivery route efficiency data, and interviewed Thompson transportation drivers about their biggest challenges. Each conversation and observation added new elements to his design. His father watched proudly as their small apartment became covered with technical drawings and environmental impact calculations. "You're not just designing a vehicle," he remarked one evening. "You're redesigning the future of transportation." Emma contributed too, in her own way, decorating Ethan's diagrams with colorful sticky notes. "Save the Earth. and best invention ever. Her enthusiasm reminded Ethan of the project's larger purpose, not just to win competitions, but to make a real difference in the world. As the national competition approached, Ethan's design evolved into something truly innovative. His hybrid electric vehicle wasn't just environmentally friendly, it was practical and cost-effective, something companies could actually implement. "This isn't just a school project anymore," he explained to his family over dinner. "I want to help create a future where progress doesn't have to come at the environment's expense." His father nodded understanding, recognizing in his son's passion the same drive that had helped them overcome their own challenges. Working late into the night, Ethan refined every detail of his presentation, determined to show the national competition judges not just a clever idea, but a viable solution to a real-world problem. His dream had grown from simply winning competitions to potentially transforming an entire industry. Children in the kitchen, "What should we cook tonight?" he'd ask as Emma bounced excitedly and Ethan consulted their newly purchased cook together. They'd prepare simple meals, pasta with fresh sauce, homemade tacos, or hearty soups. Dishes that required time and patience they now had in abundance. Friday nights became their cherished movie tradition. They'd gather on the couch, sharing blankets and popcorn, debating which film to watch. Emma always lobbied for science fiction, claiming she needed research for when her brother became a famous inventor. Their father would laugh, remembering how even as a toddler, Ethan had been fascinated by how things were. Weekends stretched out with possibilities. Some mornings, they'd make pancakes together, Ethan explaining the chemistry of baking powder to an attentive Emma. Other days, they'd visit the local park or museum, no longer too tired for family outings. These simple pleasures, once out of reach, now filled their days with joy. Emma flourished in this new environment. At 8 years old, she grew more confident daily, inspired by her brother's achievements. Her drawings covered their refrigerator, robots, machines, and inventions. She imagined Ethan would create some. "My brother's going to change the world," she'd tell her teachers proudly, her eyes shining with absolute conviction. The change was most visible in their father. The perpetual worry lines on his forehead softened, replaced by laugh lines around his eyes. He engaged fully in their lives now, helping with homework, attending school events, sharing stories from his work. The weight of constant financial stress lifted from his shoulders, allowing his natural warmth and their apartment, though still modest, transformed into a true home. Family photos replaced unpaid bills on the walls. The kitchen table became a place for shared meals and homework sessions rather than late-night budget calculations. Even their old furniture seemed more comfortable now that they could relax together without the shadow of. Most precious were the quiet moments. Their father reading the newspaper while Emma drew her future inventions, Ethan working on his latest project, as peaceful contentment filled the apartment. These simple scenes of family happiness, once seemingly impossible, now formed the fabric of their daily lives, each moment a reminder of how far they'd come together. With real-world application inspired by his observations at Thompson Transportation. When the announcer called his name as the overall winner, the convention center erupted in applause. Standing at the podium, Ethan gripped the trophy and took a deep breath before speaking. "Success has a starting point," he began, his voice clear and steady. "For me, it was a simple moment at a train station, choosing to help someone in need. That choice led to opportunities I never imagined possible. But more importantly, it taught me that kindness creates ripples we can't foresee." His eyes found his family in the crowd as he continued. "Every achievement I've earned began with the unwavering support of my family. My father, who showed me that dignity isn't about what you have, but who you are. My sister Emma, whose belief in me never wavered. And Mr. Thompson, who saw potential where others might have seen just another struggling kid." In the audience, Emma beamed with pride while their father wiped away quiet tears. Mr. Thompson nodded approvingly, remembering that day when a young boy had asked not for himself, but for his family's future. The judge's comments highlighted not just the technical brilliance of his design, but its practical potential to revolutionize urban transportation. Several major companies expressed interest in developing his concepts further, opening doors to possibilities beyond even Ethan's dreams. As cameras flashed and congratulations poured in, Ethan stood tall, no longer the uncertain scholarship student, but a young innovator on the cusp of changing his industry. The future stretched bright before him, filled with possibilities, not just for personal success, but for making a real difference in the world. The story that began with a moment of kindness had transformed into something greater, a testament to the power of compassion, perseverance, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to realize their dream. As Ethan walked off stage to embrace his family, he carried with him not just a trophy, but the precious lessons that had brought him here. That kindness creates opportunity, that determination can bridge any gap, and that the greatest achievements come from thinking of others before yourself. Thank you for watching this inspiring story. Ethan's actions not only changed his life, but also sent a powerful message about kindness and determination. How did this story make you feel? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. We'd love. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and to show your support. Subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with our latest uploads. Thank you for being a part of our journey.